So I want to um, now look at this from the perspective of contextual theology, and there have been many moves and directions in contextual theology. And one of these directions uh, asks or critiques doctrinal theology or dogmatic theology by saying that those were also done in a context, and our context is so far removed from that. We need to rethink from the bottom up. And some extreme examples of this would be uh, we need to reformulate the creeds for our context. Or another extreme example of this would be the Old Testament needs to be replaced by the Vedas for the Indian context. So there are these examples where contextual theology would say the doctrines are so far removed from our context that they do not matter. How would you respond to that?
Well, uh, I do not like the distinction of theology from below. I mean, uh, to I've forgotten the expression. You see, from bottom up, or from, you know, uh, or heavens downward. You see, I don't like this distinction. It's both way. It is really both way. You see, talking about contextual theology, don't forget the theologian himself or herself is already a context. When it comes to faith in Jesus Christ, you see, he brings all the cultural context with her in his being convicted. Okay, and we have to keep this in mind. And there is no escape of, you see, our being contextual in thinking, even when we read the Bible, the very source of all theology. And you see, that's why I always emphasize and encourage people to plunge deep into the Bible. Okay, and when we plunge deep into the Bible, we can understand, you see, why, you see, the Bible that convicts Augustine, in the 5th century, also convicts Calvin in the 16th century, and then convicts me. Okay, the Bible itself is so powerful that it really, break through cultural and personal barriers. We have to keep this in mind, and that's why, you see, we have to plunge deep in the Bible, and also keep this very, very clear. You see, the Bible does not only speak to us today. It has spoken to people like Augustine, to people like um, um, Athanasius, the Cappadocian Fathers, Calvin, Luther, and then it comes to us. And our faith, and also our church, is historical in character. And there is a historical continuity running from the early church through the medieval age, the Reformation, and then us. And there is a continuity, and we have to maintain that continuity so as to be faithful to our historic faith. Okay? And that's why doctrinal theology is so important for us. It is like something that is girding us in our attempt, you see, to do contextual theology. We have to do contextual theology anyway, okay? And diversity is the norm in nature. Diversity is something that has to be celebrated. Has to be celebrated. All diverse forms of life is undergirded by an underlying principle of life. Okay, and that's why, you see, we have to maintain that unity in diversity, just like the truth of Trinity. You know what Trinity means? It means distinction in union, and union with distinction. I mean, the two can be brought together. Diversity and unity can be brought together, okay? And sometimes, I mean, we see different traditions. Let's say the Orthodox tradition put tremendous emphasis when they talk about redemption, when they talk about soteriology, put tremendous emphasis on communion and participation. Whereas evangelicals, in particular in our modern age, put tremendous emphasis on justification. What's wrong with that? I mean, is there something wrong? I mean, if we insist that is the only way of our formulation, okay, then that is something wrong. Then we fail to see the richness of God. I mean, as an integrated whole, the richness of God. I mean, of course, I mean, in our gospel, communion and participation has its place. Justification also has its place, okay? We have to take this into consideration, accepting diversity, okay? And why such diversity? Because, I mean, all these different trends of diverse expression, contextual expressions, are very much like different strands weaved together into a total picture of God's redemption. Okay, and some, people like evangelicals who emphasize on justification. Justification is one of the trends. Okay, one of the strength. You see, that is in the weaving. I don't know whether you get me or not. Okay,
Right.
All the strands of threads weave together with different colors, forming a beautiful picture, a picture of a whole, you see. And emphasis on communion, participation has to be respected. But of course, you ask a more fundamental question. I mean, what about formulations in the 4th century, like the doctrine of Trinity? That has been centuries and centuries away from us, and yet it remains fundamental to our faith. It is fundamental to our faith, I mean, not because it is cleverly crafted by human thought. It is fundamental to our faith because the truth of Trinity is intrinsic to biblical revelation. If you look deeper, if you care, you see, to interpret the Bible as a whole, okay, you will find, you see, the truth of Trinity, I mean, spread through the whole Bible, okay? And it takes a capable theologian to show that. And so all those church fathers does not come up with this idea of Trinity from their own fancy. It comes simply because they have been faithful, you see, to the Word of God. Yeah. And you see, to be faithful to the historic doctrines also therefore means being faithful to the Word of God. As from generation to generations, our brothers and sisters in different contexts, in different ages, are faithful, have been faithful to the Word of God. Yes, that's my response to your question.